Well, good morning, everyone, executive speakers, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to welcome everyone to this morning webinar, which is under the theme ZEV Thailand Policy Road to EV or Electric Vehicle ASEAN Hub webinar. And of course, this event is hosted by the Thailand Board of Investment, or BOI, in collaboration with several organizations as well. As all of us might have known that one of the most influential and the most discussed mega trend of our time or 21st century is the ZEV, or the zero emission vehicle, which is the innovation as well as the technology that will change the world into a much better place, more environmentally friendly as well as cleaner. And of course, as for Thailand seems to have announced earlier on that within the next 14 years, which means 2035, all new cars registered here in the Kingdom of Thailand will be all ZEV, or the zero emission vehicles. In order to achieve that milestone, of course, all of us, all the stakeholders, including car manufacturers, government agencies, and also the suppliers, and even Thai people in the Thai markets would have to collaborate very closely in order to ensure that the trend of ZEV will be achieved, that milestone in 2035 as well. And I think today, the webinar today is a platform where all of our speakers, policy makers, top spots from relevant organizations will be here. Contributing their standpoints as well as their recommendations, and might declare their commitments in order to ensure that that milestone will be fully achieved. And without further ado, I would like to proceed further to the formality for this morning. And I would like to invite the Deputy Managing Director of Informal Markets to give the welcome address as well as the greeting address for all the audiences registered in the webinar today. And here, please give a warm welcome to Kun Sanchai Numbunnam.
Kun Sonkin Ploymi, Deputy Secretary General Thailand Board of Investment, Kun Wattanapong Kurawa, Director General Energy Policy and Planning Office at Pro Ministry of Energy, Kun Kietisak Jarakhajorn Wong, President Thai Subcontracting Promotion Association, Kun Kisada Uttamod, President of Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand, or EWAT, Mr. Laurent Floger, President and CEO of Mercedes-Benz Thailand, Mr. Isao Sekiguchi, President of Nissan Motor Thailand, Kun Kanchit Chai Supho, Vice President of Great Wall Motor Thailand and ASEAN. สวัสดีครับ Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ZEV Thailand Policy Road to EV ASEAN Hub webinar. As Thailand moves forward 100% zero emission vehicle by 2035, the vision of strengthened to grow of electric vehicle and to guide the country to become a global production and supply hub for electric vehicle and automotive parts. Recently, we organized a webinar in the Thai language on ZEV Thailand to elaborate government policy on the country news EV policy, which is geared toward ensuring that by 2035, most vehicles produced in Thailand will be EVs. It was an overwhelming success with over 1,000 participants from the automotive industry, part makers, government agency, the energy sector, and the general public participating and attending the webinar. Therefore, together with the Thailand Board of Investment, Thai Subcontracting Promotion Association, and Informal Market is now extending by today's section. The aims in this section is to update on EV policy to international investors together with local and overseas interests in Thailand and ASEAN in EV industry, from production, standard, battery, infrastructure, tax policy, and related supply chains. We have the honor of Mr. Wattanapong Kurawat, the Director General Energy Policy and Planning Office, EPO, Ministry of Energy, to emphasize the readiness of Thailand infrastructure to support the policy. We will hear more on how to enhance Thai EV entrepreneurs competitive from Kun Gisada Uttamot, President of EVAT. And we also are deep appreciative of having the top CEO from key automotive maker or act in the EV market to share their view on the direction of Thailand future automobile. I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to organizing partners, speaker, and all participants. I firmly believe that this webinar will provide you the insight, information, opportunities, and direction which will benefit your business and future investment in the Thailand EV industry. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the greeting in this morning webinar by the Deputy Managing Director of Informal Markets, Kun Sanchai Numbunnam. And I would like to proceed further to the introductory remarks that will be from the President of the Subcontracting Promotion Association, Kun Kietisak Ira Kajonwong. Please.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kun Sonkin Ploymi, Deputy Secretary General, Thailand Board of Investment, Kun Wattanapong Kurawat, Director General Energy Policy and Planning Office, Ministry of Energy, Kun Gisada Uttamot, President of the Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand, Kun Sanchai Numbunnam, Deputy Managing Director Informa Markets Thailand, Speaker from car makers, investor, Sawadee on attendee from many countries. It's my honor to be here today, welcoming you all to the very first webinar event that is held alongside with Subcon Thailand virtual edition. During the pandemic, it's really challenging for all manufacturers, parts suppliers, especially SME. Thailand's vision remains Thailand driving toward 100% zero emission vehicle 2035, and for Thailand to become the next global production and supplier hub for electric vehicle and automotive parts. The country is working hard in moving the automotive industry into the electric vehicle era, both in terms of usage and production. With the announcements of the new policy to accelerate the production and use of electric vehicle, it is now a hot topic and is of interest to those in the related supporting industry. The policy has greatly affected SME in Tier 2 and 3. There are more members of the association. Members should view this policy as a business opportunity. Those who are seeking to further invest and expand will try Subcon Thailand virtual edition. Together with the webinars, very useful. Participants will receive information and insights that can be taken into consideration for future business expansion. On behalf of the Thai Subcontracting Promotion Association, we extend sincere thanks to the showing organized partner and most of all to our members for their support and participation in making Subcon Thailand virtual edition and outstanding success for the industry. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that comprehensive introductory remarks by the President of Thai Subcontracting Promotion Association, by Kun Kietisak Ira Kajonwong, who have already summarized that this webinar will be very informative and also at the same time insightful. Well, now I would like to proceed further to the opening remarks today, as well as the keynote speech, and that will be delivered by the Deputy Secretary General of Thailand Board of Investment. And I would like to invite the Deputy Secretary General of the BOI in Thailand, Kun Songklin Proimani, for the opening remarks.
Thank you. Good morning สวัสดีค่ะทุกท่าน Mr. Wattanapong Purowa, Director General, Energy Policy and Planning Office, Mr. Kietisak Jirakhajon, the President of Thai Subcontracting Promotion Association, Mr. Sanchai Numbunnam, Deputy Managing Director of Informa Market, and Mr. Grisada Uttamot, the Vice President of Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand, honorary speakers and distinguished guests. On behalf of Thailand Board of Investment, it is my pleasure to speak with you today with a focus on our incentive and support to electric vehicles industry. With presence of many experts in the EV industry who may perhaps be able to give you more insightful knowledge than I am, I would like to share with you on the BOI perspective on investment trend and latest support on investment in the EV industry to local and foreign investors. As the countries around the world have promoted adoption of EV and development of the EV industry, have provided cost-effective options for consumers. The EV adoption has grown significantly around the world. Despite the pandemic, statistics of International Energy Agency, electric car stock had reached 10 million in 2020 worldwide, and 40% increase from 2019, representing one share of total cars on the road. The number of new EV on the road worldwide in the first quarter of this year accelerated by 140% from the same period of 2020. Likewise, the EV registration in Thailand also increased steadily in line with the growing consumer confidence in the EV performance and convenient access to the charging station. As well, the Thai government has shown clear commitment towards the development of the EV in Thailand, with the National Electric Vehicle Policy Committee announcing a target to have 30% of all vehicles locally produced EV by 2030 and all vehicles produced locally EV by 2035. In line with the Thai government ambitious goal, the BOI is determined to create a comprehensive ecosystem for local EV industry. As we understand that the real economy of scale is a key to cost-effective production of the EV industry. To achieve this, the BOI has replaced the package that has expired in 2018 with an enhanced incentive package for the investment of the EV industry again. Key features of the package offering up to 8 years of corporate income tax exemption for the manufacturer of the BEV and expanded coverage of a comprehensive range of electric vehicles, cover all vehicles, that means two-wheelers, three-wheelers, passenger vehicle, electric bus, electric ferries. The package also covers 14 key parts, including battery, as well as charging station and facility. And also there's additional 50% reduction of import duties of raw material will be granted to the battery module and battery cells production. And the new policy just, approved by the BOI board on the 6th of September. The board enhanced incentive of EV cover the BEV platform that consists of energy storage system, charging module, and front and rear axle module. The platform, represents at least 70% of the total cost of BEV. So the new incentives are expected to bring more flexible production with shorter time at the starting or initial stage of the EV production in Thailand. And the tax incentive also complement to the country underlying strength of the EV industry and related industry and workforce. Above all, Thailand has many more comparative advantage to attract investment, given to ongoing investment in infrastructure, resilient macroeconomy, connectivity to the greater Mekong sub-region markets and other neighboring countries, which offer more competitive environment for supply chain management. So I believe it is the forum like this one that we share knowledge and information and create new ideas for further development of the EV and related industry. With these notes, I would like to conclude my remarks. I look forward to productive discussion and networking in the event today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the opening remarks by the Deputy Secretary General of the Thailand's BOI, who have already summarized us that the targets are pretty ambitious. However, with the close collaboration, with the very fruitful discussions like one today, that will be able to drive all of us in the Thai automotive industry to achieve that milestone, especially which is fixed in the year 2035 or in the next 14 years, where the new car registered in the Thai market will be zero-emission vehicle. Well, now, and I would like to proceed further to another speaker for today. He is the director of EPO, or the Energy Policy and Planning Office for the Ministry of Energy. And if everyone is ready, we'll move to there. But however, I think that there is also the keynote speech by the Deputy Section of the Thailand Board of Investment, Kun Sonkrin Ploymi, who will be giving us the overview of today's seminar. Well, and I think that it's time for all of us to be hearing the keynote speech for this morning by Kun Sonkrin Ploymi, who is the Deputy Secretary General of Thailand Board of Investment.
Will you see the screen? I share.
We can see it clearly, madam.
Okay, sorry. I'm not sure that you have. Okay, let me welcome all participants for the seminar today again for the, your interest for the EV industry in Thailand and maybe perhaps the opportunity for the EV investment in Thailand. Before I go to the details of the policies, as I mentioned earlier, that I will focus on the policies of the government, of the Thai government to support the EV industry in Thailand. So I will not talk about the production or other factors, but I will focus on the policy. But I will start with introducing the BOI. So because I'm not sure that some of you in this webinar may know about BOI very well, but some may don't know BOI. So I just start with the responsibility or the function of BOI to support the investment. The responsibility of BOI actually, cover starting from the information sharing or giving information, also the support or the service for the company or the investor. And besides the information and service, we also, promote investment by granting incentive. We have the investment promotion law to give you, the tax incentive and non-tax incentive just to facilitate investment in Thailand. And, some of you may concerns, if you want to invest in any places around the world, some of you may concerns about, what is a factor, what is a potential factors of investment, what Thailand can offer if you are, considering to invest somewhere. So I start with what Thailand offer. Maybe the potential factors of many industry, especially, the high technology industry at the moment. The market access is one of the potential factors that the investor may consider. Also, the infrastructure, that is, had to facilitate your investment, your production, and your sales, and the government support. This is very important because the government support is, can, help you to do business easier in that country, in those countries. And for the production, for R&D and development of your business, the manpower also is, the factor that can support your success. And what about Thailand can offer this, potential? Just start with the market. This is the overall, not only the EV market, but all products also, the location of Thailand, we are, at the heart of ASEAN, connected by CLMV. This is the market, the large market. If you're comparing to, other economies in the world, ASEAN economic community is one of, the highest population with 600 million, around nearly 7 million people. So it is a big market, for the product from Thailand, including the EV, and also to access to those markets, we have the FTA, the ASEAN FTA, and also other 13 FTA. This is help you, to access easily to those markets. And what about the production cost, in Thailand, you may think that Thailand, if comparing to our neighboring countries, maybe the cost competitive is lower. But I would say that it's not true. Actually, we have the low cost of living, we have the low cost of office space, and also our corporate income tax that can, support your investment, it's only 20%. If comparing to our neighboring country, is quite low, it's not high. And the most important is, infrastructure, especially for the EV industry. Infrastructure is important factor, because you need some well-developed infrastructure, and also digital industry that can support, electronic industry that can support the EV production in Thailand. So Thailand has very well-developed infrastructure, and also we have a lot of industrial estate, well-equipped with the infrastructure is ready there to help you and to help you to start business in Thailand, very well. So, and this is just show the FTA that we have signed with 13 countries. And you just see on the right-hand side, you see the RCEP. This is important because RCEP has 15 nations, that is the big economies in the world. So the market in this region will be high. So it is a potential or opportunity, to enter to this market. So Thailand also is a member of RCEP. And we still negotiate with the EU, with United Kingdom, and also other, including CPTPP that, is popular. It's a big, economies in this group. This slide I show only infrastructure development in Thailand because I didn't show the map of Thailand and infrastructure that is underway, construction is underway. I just point out only some that, is important already, have some more progress, for the airport, the speed rail, and the road, highway road, and the deep sea port. This is all, support, the investment, so, and not only the hard infrastructure, the soft infrastructure in digital industry also is one of the priority, of the government policy. So you can be sure that if you are in Thailand, you will have the facility to support your investment. So now I turn to the policies of Thai government. I just start back, date it back to the maybe 4 or 5 years ago that Thailand start Thailand 4.0 policy. This is the policies that, it is in our Thai strategy, the Thai government strategy. And why I just put this for the policy to support the EV industry. You will see on the right-hand side, in Thailand 4.0, we set the target of targeted industry, to promote, to support, So, but the next generation automotive is one of that, that means you can make sure that this is the target of the Thai government to support, and, see the left-hand side, you see the 5 key actions also of the Thai government, that is support EV industry in Thailand in terms of developing infrastructure and training workers, also reforming law and regulations, because law and regulations related to EV industry, there are many things that we have to improve, we have to reform. So this is the key action of the Thai government. Okay, come to the BCG economic model. This is just after Thailand 4.0. Thailand 4.0 is still exists. It's the target of the Thai government, but after COVID-19, BCG economic model is one of the priority of, not only Thai government, but in the world, So Thailand has to respond to the economic and global trend. Let's see, Thailand target of the Thai government would like to be the low carbon society. And you can see it is proved by this ranking. We are the second rank in ASEAN, for the green economy. That means it's a target of Thai government. So now we can, success for some extent. And the green industry certificate, the number of firms, increased from 2013 and now 2019, we have nearly 30,000 company, from 7,000. So maybe 40% increase. Also the consumption of alternative energy also increased. So this is the trend. This is the target of Thai government to promote, the green economy. And the EV industry is one of the priority, is the pilot project of the Thai government, just to go for BCG economic model. Now, come back to the investment promotion policy. This is the overall policies of Thai government of Thailand. But for the BI policy, I just want to say that after COVID-19, we have revised our policies, and some of the policy related to the EV promotion, like number 2, promote activity that are environment friendly, save energy, and use alternative energy to drive balance and sustainable growth. This is one of the target of BUI policy. And number 3, promote cluster to create investment concentration in accordance with regional potential and to strengthen value chains. Value chain is important for the EV industry. So this is, the target of BUI promotion policy. For the incentive, you may ask about what about incentive? What BUI offer for EV industry? I just touch on the tax incentive that we always given to, every industry, that applying for promotion. The policy, the yellow one, just to facilitate investment. We don't push much limitation for investment. So that's why, if you are foreign investor, you can come to Thailand with 100% foreign ownership. And also for the EV industry or automotive industry, normally some countries, they will have the limitation, the condition that you have to, utilize local content and local part. But for Thai government or for Thai policy, no local content requirement since 2000, long time ago, and also you don't need to, push for export to bring in foreign to those countries or to Thailand. No export requirement. That's it. Facilitate your investment. It's been free market, liberalized market in Thailand. And the tax incentive, normally according to our law, there's only 3 things important for your production. If you have profit, you don't need to pay tax. That means corporate income tax exception, for up to 13 years normally. But for the EV industry, it's up to 8 years. But you can add more if you have more value. Also, you have to import machinery and raw material. This incentive exemption for import duty for raw materials and for machinery also include in our package, And visa and work permit land ownership, some countries may give you for free of land, you don't need to pay anything. But for Thailand, you can, if you pay, you can have the land ownership in Thailand according to the BOI law. And this is a standard package. We call standard package of BOI. And you may ask, where is the EV industry? What you will get? EV industry has many products, let's say starting charging station or the BEV or the parts. So I would say that for the EV industry is, upper part of this slide is mean starting from 5 years, and 8 years, 8 years without ceiling of the tax that you will be exempted. This is the EV industry. So that means it's priority because it's in the upper part of this chart. And this is merit. We call merit. Merit means you add value, to your project. So if the EV industry, you add more value, you will get more incentive. But what is the merit? You see, R&D. This is the merit. If you have the production of EV or BEV and you have the research and development, also you will have additional incentive. And, the other one that I would like to, attract or just to motivate or to request the investment is advanced technology training, because the EV industry is a new technology for Thailand. So if you can, have a training, in your company, you can apply for additional investment with the BOI also. So may I touch about the status of Thai automotive industry before I go to the incentive, you just see on the right-hand side, the supply side factor supporting ecosystem. I just want to say that Thailand, the production of Thailand can be big enough to support the EV production with the supply chain, because now we are the 11th largest automotive producer in the world, and we are the first in ASEAN, and the supply chain, we have about 1,700 companies in the supply chain in upstream supporting industry, and this high quality, so you can be sure, you can feel confident that, you can have some, supply chains in Thailand, no need to import a lot of things to Thailand. And also, the Thai government, trying to expand the EV infrastructure, both public and private. So this is, can support your EV production or business in Thailand. What about the production capacity? You see, as I mentioned, we are number 1 in ASEAN. So we are the largest, auto producer. And in 2020, 50% is from Thailand, and we have a production of more than the rest, the remaining of ASEAN country. But what about the motorcycle? Motorcycle actually, more than 50%, is 58, 59, nearly 60% if comparing to other countries in ASEAN. What about the EV registration in Thailand? This is the records of 2019. Actually, for 2020 is nearly 200,000 units already. And the government target, we plan to produce 1.2 million EV per year, and have 690 charging stations by 2036. This is our plan of the Thai government, If you comparing to other ASEAN countries also, their plan, let's say that Indonesia, that has, a lot of population, but they aim to export, they may think about the purchasing power of their population. Philippines also, estimate that the market will go by 8 to 12% with 200,000 units. It's not different, so that's why in ASEAN there are many countries that is trying to promote EV industry. But for Thailand, we also, have, the idea is the same. This is just show the accumulated number of EV registration. You can see the yellow one is the car registration of car EV, and but the pink one is motorcycle. So you will see the trend, increasing every year, for registration of EV in Thailand. And this is the policies, I just want to touch about the policy. Actually, National Electric Vehicle Policy Committee, they have, consider the ecosystem and all the picture of EV industry. They are working hard, just to reach the target 30-30. What about 30 and 30? 30, the first 30 is mean, okay, they want to have, EV production 30% of all the EV production in Thailand. In the second 30 is mean in 2030. So that means 30-30. You just remember this one. This is a target. And there are 4 stimulation measures of the government. You see, government and state enterprise car project. We have this project. We have the civil state EV project. We have smart city bus project. We have the clean motorcycle taxi. So this is all stimulation measures that the National Electric Vehicle Policy Committee is going to, support. So you can make sure that the demand is increasing in Thailand. And also this is the target. You see, as I mentioned, 2030, we will have 30% of all new vehicle produced to be zero emission. And also all new vehicle produced to be zero emission by 2035. This is our target. You see, it's challenging. Can we reach that target or not? So now come to the BUI incentive, in the EV industry. You see this picture. We promote, all vehicles starting from 4-wheel, 3-wheel, 2-wheel, and also, bus and truck, boat, and part, charging station. This is all, the part of the products or the activity or business that, belongs to the EV industry ecosystem. And incentive, on the right hand side, incentive, just mentioned corporate income tax exemption of import duty on raw materials, and exemption of import duty on machinery. This is all, non-tax incentive also, you will get the full package of the EV industry if you are doing something in this industry. And this is just incentive. I give just example that, okay, maybe you have some idea, but for more detail, you just visit us and then you can make appointment online. You don't need to come during COVID-19. We have the service, everything done online now. You can make appointment and you can have a meeting. You can have a consultation online. This is very convenient to contact BUI. This is the electric bicycle. Beside, okay, I go back to this one. This one is just our, the policy that already launched, cover, all vehicles, 2-wheel, 3-wheel. And this is the new one just launched September, just approved by the board, So we cover bicycle also, electric bicycle. But incentive may be less than, the 4 wheels, because the bicycle, they don't have complicated system, and then you can, but anyway, it supports, zero emission. So that's why we promote the electric bicycle or e-bike. And also on the right-hand side, the platform production. Why the platform production is one of the promoted business, for the EV industry, because we want to be, more flexible at the initial stage of production of EV in Thailand. So, if you have the production of platform that is consisting of energy storage system and charging module and front and rear axle module, if you have this production, also you can apply, for promotion. And this also, you see, the package of EV, I just show that if you produce BEV, battery electric vehicle, you get 8 years, but if you produce PHEV, you get only 3 years. HEV, you can get promotion, but no corporate income tax exemption. This is just, example. But if you invest more, not less than 5 million, you get more incentive. But if you invest less than 5 million baht, you get less incentive. This is our package, for the motorcycle, the incentive is less than 4 wheels or passenger car. It's just 3-year exemption of corporate income tax. And the part and batteries, 8-year exemption for corporate income tax. You see, this is, as I mentioned in our chart, that you are at the top or upper part of the chart of incentive. And charging station, you get 5 years of corporate income tax exemption. This is all, the product or business, that support the EV industry in Thailand. That is all the incentive and the policies of government to support the EV industry in Thailand. Maybe you can hear more, from the private sector or from other government agencies, about the ecosystem. You can make decision, or you can feel that, okay, what Thailand is beneficial for you to invest in EV industry. And for more information, you can contact BI through this channel, Facebook or Line or email. It's up to your convenience. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for the very powerful presentation by the Deputy Secretary General of the Thailand's BOI, Kun Sonklin Proimi. I think that in terms of attractiveness of Thailand as the ultimate destination to attract foreign direct investment has been renowned for decades. And I'm pretty sure that all of us are well aware that the BOI has been working very hard to ensure that Thailand remains very attractive in whichever technology that we will host the new investment, including the ZEV as well as the EV. Well, and now I wish to proceed to another presentations that will give us the overview of how the energy sector would look at the progress of the ZEV here in Thailand. And together with me and together with us, we also have the Director of EPO, or Energy Policy and Planning Office from the Ministry of Energy, Director Wattanapong Kurovat, who will be giving us a presentation upon this very interesting topic.
สวัสดีครับ Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm delighted and honored to have the opportunity to speak in the topic of the Thailand is ready for state-of-art facility for EVs. Nowadays, it is undeniable that the global warming is the main direct driver of the global trend toward a low-carbon economy and society. So Thailand realized its importance of its energy transition policy and the need to shape up the future energy of Thailand and transform our energy sector to be cleaner and greener to align with the Paris Agreement goal to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius. Regarding to the Thailand latest, what we call the nationally determined contribution or the NDC commitment, we aim to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 20 to 25% with 2030 compared to the reference year in 2005 by several measures. Under the National NDC Roadmap 2021 to 2030, with the potential target of the 115.6 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent reductions, energy and transportation sector takes responsibility of 113 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent by reducing carbon dioxide in electricity generations, residential consumption, business and industrial use, and also the transportation sector. The increase in emissions was driven by the higher energy consumptions. The power sector accounts for almost 2/3 for increase in total emissions. Ministry of Energy has set policy to focus on reducing carbon dioxide from energy sector. Therefore, the National Energy Plan 2022 has been approved by the National Energy Policy Council, or the NEPC, in recent August of this year. Thailand proposed to achieve carbon neutrality by 2065 to 2070 under the National Energy Plan 2022, with the emphasis on enhancing Thailand's business competitiveness and adaptation to move forward to the global trend of the low carbon economy. So, Ministry of Energy, we aim to implement our 4 active measures toward a net zero pathway. By the first one is increasing the share of renewable energies to more than 50% in the new power generation capacity, in line with the trend of significantly lower renewable energy costs. This must be considered in conjunction with the cost of the long-term energy storage system, and does not increase the cost of electricity generation in the long run. The second one is very important. The transitioning toward an immediate zero-emission vehicle, or the ZEV target, and becoming a major player in the global supply chain by increasing the share of domestic ZEV to be 30% of total vehicle production in 2030, so-called 30 at 30 policy, with promotion measures and tax incentives during its transition. The transformation of used electric vehicles not only to reduce greenhouse gas emission to meet the target, it also improve energy efficiency in the transportation sector. Moreover, EV could help to solve the current problem of the weather condition from the PM 2.5 as well. Third, applying a new and advanced technology of energy system management, enhancing the energy efficiency to be over 30% of the total final energy consumption. It will help overall emissions of greenhouse gases in energy sector to reach target faster. And the last one, the reduction energy industry to support energy transition pathway by applying 4D1E strategy that consisting of digitalization is the application of technology to improve work efficiency in both production and distribution systems, such as distributed energy resources enabled by the big data driven alignment of the supply and demand. Decarbonization is the shift to energy usage pattern toward more renewable, which are all be able to reduce the carbon emissions. Decentralization is the process of distributing energy generation system from large production plant to small plant, where electricity can be traded with one another by applying additional renewable to connect the microgrid system for use in the smart grid system. And the last one is the deregulation. It is the relaxation of the restrictive energy regulations, as well as to support new energy developers to meet the future regulatory changes. And also the electrification is preparing for technological support for the full use of EV, or electric vehicle, which is one of the major energy consumer in the smart grid system, by expanding the electric network and supporting of the various technologies such as charging station, energy storage system, battery swapping station. That's all about the energy situation in Thailand. Next, I would like to highlight about the EV policy in Thailand. Since February last year, our Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha appointed the National Electric Vehicle Policy Committee. The main component is the Prime Minister or the Deputy Prime Minister. As current, the chair is the Deputy Prime Minister Kun Supathana Phongphan Meechal. And the National EV Policy Committee is primarily responsible for direction and goal for the development of electric vehicle, approve action plan and various projects of the government agency related to the development of electric vehicle. Under the committee, there are 4 subcommittees were appointed to drive the country electric vehicle operations to concrete action. The first one is the subcommittee on the promotions of manufacturing industry of electric vehicle and parts. Second is the subcommittee on infrastructure and battery development to support the electric vehicles. Third is the subcommittee on assessing the impact of fuel and greenhouse gases from the promotion of electric vehicle. And the last one is the subcommittee on the promoting the electric vehicle adoption. Key government agency willing to operate under the committee and the 4 subcommittees are Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Energy, and Ministry of Finance. At the beginning of this year, the committee has defined Thailand visions of the electric vehicle as Thailand is a global major production base for electric vehicle and parts. The committee has set ZEV target of 2030 to produce 30% of total vehicle productions, or about 700,000 units, and aim to have the 12,000 DC fast charger and 2 million electric vehicles nationwide. The ZEV production and use target has various types of electric vehicles, including passenger car and pickup truck, motorcycle, bus and truck, tuk-tuk or tricycle, electric boat, electric train for the rail system. According to the set target for the public charging station in fast charge to facilitate the use of passenger cars, and one is a target of the battery swapping station. It facilitates electric motorcycle, especially EV bike for service, such as food delivery and motorcycle taxi, which are expected to be widely used in the near future. As well as to accelerate the implementations for measures to promote the production and adopt of electric vehicle, and also develop infrastructure and promote the battery production for the electric vehicle. 4 subcommittee work together with various departments in order to prepare the measure details and projects for driving our measure to be consistent, concrete, and in the same directions. Policy to promote electric vehicle is divided into 3 main approaches: EV production, EV adoption, and infrastructure development for the EV. Firstly, the promotion of the EV and part production support the transition to EVs. Secondly, promotion of the EV adoption by tax and non-tax measure also support the government EV fleet. And thirdly, the infrastructure development for the EV and batteries. We are promoting the development of the EV charging station network, develop standard of regulation, and aim to connect smart grid technology. Most importantly, we focus on the development of the EV ecosystem, especially we promoting EV battery include usage, production, recycling and refurbishing, also manpower development and technology research. In addition, the Ministry of Industry has launched a project to establish what we call the Automotive and Tire Testing Research and Innovation Center, or the ATRIC, which is located in Chachoengsao Province, one of the Eastern Economic Corridor, or the EEC, to enhancing automotive industry into super cluster for next vehicle industry. ATRIC is ready for fully operation in this year at and it will be the first automotive and tire testing center in Asia. By leading the shift to zero emission mobility, the development of the charging station infrastructure is crucial in attracting more demand of electric vehicle and generating domestic demand to drive the electric vehicle and part industry. The subcommittee of the infrastructure and battery development to support electric vehicle has three approaches for infrastructure development. The first approach is promoting the development of adequate charging station network through agency and partners. The study from the Electric Power Research Institute of the United States revealed that the behavior of the EV user, which can be categorized into three groups, almost 80% of users are using slow charger at home. 15% using both of fast and slow charger at the workplace, and another 5% using fast charger in public area. Therefore, the Ministry of Energy of Thailand has proposed a sample measure to be implemented in the next 5 years period, 2021 to 2025, which are categorized into measures. First, the measure to promote investment and development of the public charging station. For example, the development of investment plan and installation charging station on road network. Conduct EV charging station mapping, feasibility study, and allocation of charging space in the parking lot. Second, the measure to promote charging station in various networks, such as provide parking spaces with charger in the government buildings and education institutions. Investment or financial support for charger installation in workplace or the private fleet, and study of business model related to mass transit and cargo transportation with electric vehicle. And the third, for the home charger, which is the most proportional, we will connect EV home charger to smart grid by promoting smart meter or digital meter, facilitating home charger and provide advice on improving home electrical system by Metropolitan Electrical Authority, MEA, and the Provincial Electricity Authority, or the PEA. We also prepare to manage the EV charging without affecting the overall electrical system. By our example measure that I mentioned earlier, it will go along with the design of the electricity tariff that motivates the investment, charging station and home charging, establishing a national platform to manage EV-related data to develop into smart charging in the future. When we look at the number of the charging station, the information comes from the Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand, or the EVAT, including AC and DC charger in Thailand as August, the total of 2,272 chargers divided into 774 DC chargers. However, in our policy aspect, we focusing on the number of the DC charger, and it will have a huge impact on the power distribution system and build a confidence for consumer in traveling for the long distance. For the investment and development of the public charging station network, we have set goal to promote short-term charging station. Then we have to plan to investment EV charging stations on the main route of the transportation and analyze travel demand to distribute charger throughout the country. The first priority is to be focused on the promotions of the EV charger in the major cities, major tourist attraction area, and stopover along the main route. The second approach is establish establishing the regulation standard and guideline to develop the charging station. For the detail of the developed relevant regulation and standard, we propose urgent measure to be implemented in the next 5 years, from 2021 to 2025. For example, to improve development of construct law and regulation related to the equipment safety standard and use. To develop area to promote the installation of charger and communication standard and connecting to the electric system. To facilitate EV user or the investor in order to invest charging station by shortening the process of asking for the permission and reduce the cost of the charger installations. And to educate, training, and public relations in installation procedure for charging equipment and service provide for at home and the public charger. And the last approach is to promoting the smart grid technology to connect and manage integrated electric charging. Ministry of Energy of Thailand has set the roadmap for the EV integration into the smart grid action plan. And now we are at the implementing initial phase. We aim for short-term goal in a couple of years. Is in the process of preparing the electrical grid network to connect data in the national platform. Then in the next 5 years, we will develop smart charge technology by collaborate with the energy business. And we expect that in the next 6 to 10 years, EV will be able to develop and integrate with the electrical grid to what we call the V2G and the V2X. And in the long-term goal, in the next 10 years, we will develop EV as a service to take an advantage of the EV and EV batteries. The Ministry of Energy is aware of the global climate situation and the changing of the global energy trend that may affect the traditional energy system. Moving toward energy transition era by upgrading traditional transmission line using smart grid and digital technology could provide us an easily solution for supply and demand management. The electric vehicle as a middleman could help to stabilize electricity by using as a mobile energy storage system. And also under the National Energy Plan 2022, we will be increasing, that I earlier mentioned, the share of the renewable energy to be more than 50% in the new power generation capacity. It means that we have a green electricity for electric vehicle and its production. We will play an important role on energy transition into cleaner, cheaper, stability, flexibility, and eco-friendly for moving Thailand into a low-carbon society and sustainability. Finally, I would like to reassure all the investors that Thailand is preparing in every aspect to support and drive the domestic production of the electric vehicle and parts and widespread use with the support facilities to promoting zero emission mobility. Thank you very much for your attention. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you very much, Director Wattanapong. But before I leave you from the stage, there is one particular question which seems to be answered only by the Director of EPO. That's mean by you, Director Wattanapong. The question is about the renewable energy. Does the office, the EPO, Ministry of Energy, have any kind of targets or plan in order to encourage the industry to increase the proportion to use the renewable energies in their industry? Do you have any kind of target in absolute figures or some information to share with us?
Actually, the Ministry of Energy, we have what we call the AEDP plan, which means we try to promote the renewable energy for electric generations. The number is around 18,000 megawatt will be coming along in the next 15 or 20 years in the future. But after that, I already mentioned that the new framework of the National Energy Plan 2022, and we have to transition the energy to the cleaner for the global warming or the climate change. We have set the new target to have a more than 50% of the renewable generation for the power generation in Thailand. And this plan and the target will coming news in the next year.
Well, thank you very much for your answer to that question from our audience this morning webinar. And I would like to proceed further to another presentation by a very important person. I mean, I think that no one knows the development of EV here in Thailand better than this man who is the president of EVAT, or the Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand. And please give a warm welcome to Kun Krisada Uttamod.
สวัสดีครับขอบคุณครับ Dr. Witt. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here at the ZEV at 35. And thanks to the BOI, thanks to Subcon Thailand, of course, Informal Markets and all the partners for making it happen today. Of course, the focus is on the EV market trend in ASEAN and the opportunity for market entrance to Thailand. And this is crucial for our future as we are now moving to the innovation phase of the automotive industry. So as Dr. Witt already mentioned, my name is Krisada Uttamod. I'm the current president of the Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand, or as we call in short, EVAT. So please allow me to share some slides with you in just a few seconds. All right. Okay, so I have it here with me now. Let's move on to talk about the topics that I'd like to explore with all of you today. So in principle, there will be three main topics that I'd like to talk about. First of all, an introduction of the Electric Vehicle Association in Thailand. And secondly, we'd like to look at the XEV status worldwide, as well as in Southeast Asia and also in Thailand. And of course, when talking about XEV, we talk about the hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and battery electric vehicle up to the fuel cell vehicle in our category of the battery vehicles car. And last but not least, I'd like to present some opportunities for the country, for Thailand, and of course, particularly to touch on the entrepreneur opportunities. So let's jump right into the first topic that we have. So a little bit about the Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand. We are, let's say, the non-profit organization that seeks to support and to promote the knowledge exchange in electric vehicle technology and innovation. So our association has been established since November 2015, and our aim is to promote the XEV usage in Thailand in order to help reducing air pollution and to improve energy efficiency in the transport sector. And of course, the association also provides consultation on regulation standards on operation concerning the development of electric vehicle technology in Thailand. Currently, we have 30 committees who work on various topics. So anything from industry support, user information support, academic and research and development. So I would say that we have quite a very good mix and very diverse group of the committee and the members. So currently, the EVAT has nearly 290 members from across the private sector, state enterprise, academia, and more. So the association regularly hosts the monthly meeting to exchange knowledge and to assign tasks in separate working groups to drive electric vehicle industry towards sustainable growth. And as I said, we have a very well-mixed group of the representatives from both the academic side as well as the industry side. So from the corporate member, we have over 190 members. And from individual members coming from academic side, university, college, or even students, we have nearly 100. So working in parallel on the electrification topics in a very diverse area. So this is a quick glimpse of our corporate structure and the EVAT membership. So without losing more time, I'd like to talk about the XEV status worldwide, Southeast Asia, and also in Thailand. So as you can see from this chart, which I have taken from evvolume.com to look at the BEV and plug-in hybrid growth in 2020 in last year compared to 2019. So as you can see that in most countries, XEV are more resilient to the COVID-19 crisis than the auto market in general. So in the volume term, the global XEV deliveries increased. If you look at the last row, global total increased by about 43% year on year as of last year, while the total vehicle market decreased by about 14%. So Europe actually had more XEV sales last year than China, with about 137% increase, when the total automotive market went down by about 20%. So as we can see that electric vehicles are more resilient to the pandemic crisis than the auto market in general, and the positive trend is expected to continue for the next years to come as well. There are a lot of talks that I'm pretty sure that you have heard about. It is called ICE ban, which is basically if you look across the chart from one nation to the next, you can see that there are so many countries who already come up with the initiative to ban the internal combustion engine vehicle. And the first one that we see on the chart is Norway. So Norway is among the very first country to ban ICE entirely by 2035. And currently, battery electric vehicle registration in Norway is about 54% of the entire vehicle population. This is as of 2020. There is also there's some reason behind why Norway is so successful in the BEV adoption. Take, for example, the value add tax or VAT. There will be the VAT exemption for zero emission vehicle in Norway that has been approved already quite some years until the end of 2022. So, and of course, by 2017, the Norwegian government also launched a program to finance the establishment of at least 2 multi-standard fast charging stations every 50 kilometers on the main road in Norway. So that helps a lot for the commuters to travel, anywhere in Norway, without any worry that they would not find the quick charge. So government make that possible. So therefore, we see even more than 50% of the EV adoption in Norway already, and they're on the way to achieve 100% ICE ban within 2025. And of course, we look down the list of the country, you can see that a lot of the countries are aiming around the year 2030. Even in Denmark, in Iceland, in Germany, 2035, like the UK, like all vehicle in Denmark in 2035. And in Asia, particularly if you look at, take for example, Singapore. Singapore has already announced that they would go all electric by 2040. So it means that by 2030, it will be the last year where people can really get the COE or the certificate of entitlement. So before you purchase the car in Singapore, you need to have the COE. So the last one will be issued around 2030 or 2031. So it means that you have the right to use the ICE car until 2040. But after that, you have to get the COE for electric car only. So this is a trend that we are seeing. And of course, we will jump into the target of Thailand in just a few seconds. So globally, of course, when we look at the timeline, how we will see the shift from ICE cars to hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and of course to fuel cell in the future. You can see that there would be quite the growth, evident growth that we see from 2030 onwards, that we see quite a number of the shift toward the battery electric vehicle, plug-in hybrid, and fuel cell from that 2030. And if you look at the cutting point, this is taken information from the Bloomberg. They would forecast that around 2035, you see the cutting point where 50% of the electric vehicle and 50% of ICE share would be equally seen in around that period. But please keep in mind that this is a study which came out already quite some time ago. So we might see a much faster speed of EV adoption, and the cross might come earlier. So this is expected that we can see some change in quite a few years to come. So let's move closer to Southeast Asia and to see where we are in comparison to our neighboring countries. So on the left-hand side, I would like to show you the statistic of the production. It would be the annual production by fuel types, by country. So if you look across the chart, we have the highest volume coming from Thailand. And then next is Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. And of course, from the chart, you can see that in around 2018, we have already produced around 2 million vehicles, mainly ICE, of course, and still continue to be ICE as of now. There are some hybrid production. There are some plug-in hybrid as well, and a small percentage of the battery electric vehicle production in Thailand. Last year, we had about 1.4 million of the automotive production. Indonesia came second with about 643,000 production last year. And of course, Malaysia with about 482,000, and Vietnam and Philippines, so on. And on the right-hand side, you can see that we have, in principle, the registration taken by the Land Transport Department. If we look at the battery electric vehicle alone, in all kind of drivetrain from two-wheeler, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, Philippines has the highest population of electric vehicle of all types. But the blue portion that you see there is the mainly the the two and the three-wheelers. So they have much more the tricycle and the motorcycle than us. But the green portion is the four-wheelers, and Thailand has more of that. Up to last year, we have in total around 2,200 four-wheelers or the passenger electric vehicle in Thailand, which is more than Malaysia and Singapore in general. So that is the basis of the comparison by nation that we are looking at. The foundation has been quite strong for Thailand. We have been a very, let's say, successful hub for the automotive production for the last decades. And now we want to move forward into the new electrification for the country. So which represent this in this chart, just a look into the last few decades of our automotive industry in Thailand. So as you can see that we have seen some up and down. There are some peak in terms of the production that we have in 2012, where we had the production up to about 2.4 million of the vehicle production here. And of course, if we look across from the bar chart, we have about nearly 50% for export and 50% we produce for the domestic sales. This tradition still continue until, let's say, in last year, we had about 1.4 million production. So half of it went for export. This year, we probably expect around 1.5 million of the automotive production, and still hopefully that we can retain the 50% export portion to the future. The key point to this one is, of course, to look into the future. How do we retain our market here when we talk about the shift toward the battery electric vehicle trend in other countries that we used to export to? Of course, the shift is to BEV, and therefore we have to adapt ourselves in order to retain such proportion for the export destination that we still continue to export our vehicle to. So a bit closer look into the vehicle population that we have in Thailand based on the information that we gather from the Land Transport Department and of course from the Electric Vehicle Association. If you look across the years from 2017 up to 30th of June in 2021, the combined registration of the hybrid and plug-in hybrid is around 210 units that we have in the country. And for the battery electric vehicle of all type, it is about 8,267 as of mid of this year. And if you look into the right hand side, there is the breakdown by different drivetrains that we have for hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and BEV. For the battery electric vehicle, as you can see that the majority is still the electric scooter and the motorcycle, which is about 4,700. Electric vehicle, passenger car mainly is about just over 1,000 something. So this is, this is 3,000 something. So this is still the proportion that we are seeing here today as of now. But of course, the target for Thailand to grow is much more than the figure that we are seeing in this chart. But before we go into the target that we will look at the first of all the charging infrastructure, just to compare. the ratio and the comparison of the public charging station out there compared to the total vehicle population. So in general, Kun Wattanapong already mentioned that the public charging station that we have here is over 2,200 public charging station if you count by number of the sockets in the about 688 locations nationwide. So there are of course many different providers out there, and of course the biggest one is EA or Energy Absolute with over 1,600 charging points. Then, of course, you have MEA, you have PEA, you have the EGAT, and of course, a lot of the providers who also put up the public charging station everywhere. And the ambition for EVAT association is to combine or to make the EV roaming for all the charging points in order to provide the ease of use for our customer. Whenever you use the charging station, it should be easy that if you use. It's like your ATM machine, one card, one platform to use it across the provider. So it is still work in progress and still a lot of preparation in the background that we are doing. And hopefully that with the combined or with the charging consortium that we are doing now, it should help a lot of the consumer to shift to electric vehicle much easier. Now let's talk a bit about the opportunity for Thailand. Where are the opportunities and how do we see the growth of the electric vehicle in Thailand? So as already shared by Kun Wattanapong from EPO, he already mentioned that in Thailand we have the so-called the National EV Policy Committee. So basically the committee already has met so many times, starting from March 2021, led by Kun Wattanapong Panmichao, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of the Energy. So he's the chairman of the National EV Policy Committee. So with the meeting, we already aim to initiate a low carbon society and of course to bring Thailand to become the global production base for EV electric vehicle in the market. So to set the policy and the measure to drive electric vehicle industry in order to cover all area, the National EV Policy Committee has appointed 4 subcommittee, which is already categorized here. So the first one is the promotion of the manufacturing of EV. Second one is on the development of infrastructure and the battery. And the third one is the subcommittee on the assessment of greenhouse gas and fuel stock impact from the promotion of the electric vehicle. And the fourth committee, which is also a very important one, is the subcommittee on the promotion of the use of electric vehicle to gather information and to present the policy to drive the electric vehicle association. So basically, EVAT is proud to be part of the 3 of our 4 subcommittees, which we are helping to support the information and to suggest the measurement. So I believe that in the coming period, we will see quite a number of the measurement and the initiative by the National EV Policy Committee to drive electrification and of course to drive for the target that has been set, which is here. The zero emission ZEV target until 2035 had already been announced and set. So many of you have already seen the target. So I just want to recap on this one a bit, that the National EV Policy Committee set the target on 2 levels. They set the target on the usage and they set the target on the production. So as you can see that there are quite a number of the years and the milestone that they would like to achieve from one to the next. So starting in 2025, so just 4 years from now, in terms of the passenger car and pickup trucks, the target for the usage is to achieve about 30% of the total registration. So which means that it will be about 225,000 units per annum of the registration for ZEV. And the production would be target around 10%, or to produce the ZEV about 225,000 units per year until 2025 before jumping into 2030, which is quite a key milestone to address, because we want to achieve about 50% of the passenger car and pickup truck registration, which is, it's going to be about 440,000 units per year until then. And production for the passenger car and pickup trucks is aiming at about 30% or 725,000. For the motorcycle and for other type of the vehicle, there are also target as well. But here I just show example of the motorcycle, which has a slight difference from the passenger car and pickup trucks. So the government is aiming to achieve about 40% of the electric motorcycle registration by 2030, so which is about 650,000. And for the production of the electric motorcycle, it will be about 30% in 2030. So this is the aiming that we are looking at. And of course, it will come with the support measure to drive electrification forward and to achieve such target that we are seeing here. In terms of the infrastructure to support the number of the vehicle growth and the adoption, of course, there are different type of the infrastructure that we are looking at. There are target for the DC quick charger, which is quite crucial because now we're talking about the 50 kilowatt charger or above, which would bring a much faster speed for the electric vehicle charging at the nearby point. So until 2025, they would like to see about 2,200 to about 4,400 charging point as DC quick charge before jumping into 2030 with about 12,000 DC quick charger in that range. So if we count by the current status of the DC quick charger we see right now in the as of June 2021, we have in total about 700 DC quick charger socket, if we count by socket. So and now we want to jump to about 12,000 charging stations by 2030. So it's quite a big jump from there on the DC quick charger. But of course, that it will be necessary to support the growth that we are looking at the target plan. And for the motorcycle, of course, there would be some optional facility for the motorcycle because you can do either to charge the motorcycle or basically to have the swapping station, which would be quite fast to bring the battery into the road again. So the target would be about 8,000 charging station by 2030, and the swapping station would be about 1,450. And of course, with that, we also have the plan for the battery production. Starting from 2025, the plan is to have about 20 gigawatt hour production plant before jumping to 2030 with about 40 gigawatt hours of the battery production here locally. And we already see some of the local manufacturers like GPSC, like Energy Absolute, who have a solid plan to come up with the battery production here in the country. So we would have a very good let's say outlook as the starting point to achieve this kind of objective. Now, when we talk about the opportunity for the electric vehicle, of course, we have to break it down a little bit into the different type of the components that we're talking about. We can't really, deny that, of course, there will be some components that would be obsolete. We will not need it anymore in the battery electric vehicle. Like, take for example, we look at the category here. We have the body, the chassis, the drivetrain, the engine, and the electronic. And of course, what we would see a lot of change is coming from the engines components, like electric motor generators, and the engine itself that would be totally gone for the electric vehicle. So it means that our local part supplier would have to somehow shift the production or the assembly line to other components which will accommodate the battery electric vehicle in the future. And the color code here is implying, according to Frost and Sullivan, the red meaning that we have no production in Thailand and we have no capable supplier to produce in Thailand at the moment. So basically this one is a bit taken from last year. So this year we have the battery cells already from GPSC, take for example, to start with. But of course, you talk about the integrative controller units, which is still not available yet, as yet. On the orange dot, it is there's currently no production in Thailand, but we have a possibility and the capability of the local supplier to produce in Thailand. So it comes from the the battery body shell for the BEV, which is it can be compatible from ICE to BEV. We talk about the chassis system, which can be compatible. The drivetrain can be adapted as well for the low series gearbox and so on. And for the electronic, this is the new one that we will see more here. we will see more of the onboard charger, we will see more of the battery module and pack assembly, we will see more of the DC AC converter, and of course the high voltage connectors. So there will be a lot more components when it comes to the battery related components for electric vehicle. And obviously this is an opportunity for the market that we will see a massive growth, and the battery value chain globally would be very high, and Thailand would not want to miss out on the battery value chain as well. So this is the opportunity that we are seeing for the automotive industry. Now, let's touch a little bit on the sample of the Thai entrepreneur. So, of course, when talking about electric vehicles, we have some quick startup company, and they have started quite successfully in the market. So I just read some of them, whom I know from the personal meeting and of course from other webinar session that we have met. So the MoveMe, take for example, MoveMe is the on-demand ride-sharing service, which is they would use the 100% electric tuk-tuk, and consumer can choose the on-demand service by calling whenever they want. The starting fee is only 10 baht. So you can easily book by just download the MoveMe application and to register with your phone numbers. So MoveMe is part of the Chulalongkorn University Smart City campaign as well. So this one have over 100 e-tuk-tuk in the city, and you can see them around as well. So it's another good choice to go around without the producing carbon to the public. Another one is called PUTT, P-U-T-T, which stands for Power Up Tuk-tuk. Also electric tuk-tuk startup. They emphasize on the niche group of the elderly people on the wheelchair, as you can see in the photo here. So it is quite a convenient transport option for people with disability. So going from home to the hospital or to other places, PUTT can really offer that kind of ride. And the founder has seen the room of opportunity in this kind of segment. So then he adapt the tuk-tuk to electric, so which can accommodate the wheelchair easily. So this is some sample of the entrepreneur when we see in terms of the electric tuk-tuk that we see quite some good progress in this kind of growth. And of course, if we move to the other type of the drivetrain like the electric car and of course HOP in the car sharing. So basically the HOP was founded in 2016 with the beginning registered capital of only 1 million Thai baht. And CEO and the founder of HOP is Kun Grit. He initiated his car sharing service via smartphone to run on both the iOS and Android system. So the user can book the service 24 hours a day, over 1,000 locations nationwide, and over 200 in Bangkok alone. So rental can be done on hour basis. So you don't need to hold on for the car for the entire day. So you can use it by hour. So quite convenient for all users. And of course, for BMW as a premium car, they also offer now with HOP. So you can basically book the 3 Series, 5 Series, X3 plug-in hybrid as well via the HOP application. And of course, there is also another company which is called e-Tran. So which is the e-Tran is in the business of the e-scooter, specially developed for the public transport. So 50% of the body of e-Tran from, this is one of the models that I learned. They have basically used the natural fiber compound derived from pineapple. And the scooter is equipped with the IoT technology, which support the cashless payment and the facility for fleet management as well. And the good thing is that if you look at the design of the e-Tran, this one, basically they have already been awarded as the winner of the Red Dot Innovation in 2020. So a very successful design from the founder of e-Tran, Kun Soranat Chuchat. And I believe that this year he already announced that he has a target to sell about 2,000 units of the e-Tran electric scooter. And of course, you can see e-Tran now today, in combination with the SCB Robinhood, because the food delivery business is growing up quite a bit. So e-Tran is really good in that facility and of course the accommodation of the electric delivery as well. So a little bit on the preparation, if we look into the what would need to be developed for the future of the entrepreneurship and of course to drive the electric vehicle onwards. I would say that we need a lot of trainings in terms of the electrical safety, in terms of functional safety, in terms of the high voltage system and hybrid, for not only for the OEM, but of course for all the SME, for the startup. And of course, when it comes to electric safety, this is one of the main crucial points when we would like to ask for the collaboration with the between the private companies, the government, and of course the institution to also expanding the area of the educational training to support this kind of the needs and the knowledge in safety, and of course in the development of the electric vehicle. And of course, my summary for the business opportunity in Thailand is just to recap that, of course, we have the National EV Policy Committee with the subcommittee to work on various demand incentives. As Kun Wattanapong already mentioned, there will be tax and non-tax incentives that would be that we expect to see. There will be a ZEV target that is already clear, and we compare to our other country, we are very clear in terms of the target. But the puzzle that we have to do now is to achieve the target according to what we plan for, and of course to see the tangible measurement to support this growth and the target that we expect to see. And of course, last but not least, I'd like to recap that the demand in the battery cell, the battery control unit, and the charging station equipment will be very high by 2030. So these are all the areas where I will see a lot of the SME and the startup to take place from now until 2030 and onward. So this ends my presentation to this one. Thank you so much, Kap.
Thank you very much, Kun Krisada Uttamot, who is the president of EVAT in Thailand, who have already given us the comprehensive overview as well as the details in terms of further milestone for the progress of ZEV here in Thailand. And the presentation also include also the attempts from several partners as well as sectors who try to contribute to ensure that the milestone 2030 and 2035 will be achieved all together. Well, and now let's move further to the panel discussions for this morning webinar, which will be organized under the theme Game-Changing Future Directions of Thailand's Future Mobility. And it is our pleasure and honor to have the three executives from the three leading car manufacturers of the world from different regions, from different countries, to be our panelists. And before we start further to our panel discussions, I would like to introduce our speaker or our panelists one by one first. The first panelist for this session is the President and the CEO of Mercedes-Benz Thailand Limited, Mr. Roland Folger. And the second speaker for this panel is the Regional Vice President M&S ASEAN and the President of Nissan Motor Thailand, Mr. Isao Sekiguchi. And the third one is the Vice President of Great Wall Motor Thailand and ASEAN, Mr. Kanchit Chaisupo. Well, I would like to welcome the three panel for this panel discussions. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you. Thank you very much for the introduction.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to ask the three of you, and I would like to ask Mr. Folger first, the same questions for the three gentlemen here. I'm sure that all of you have done quite a lot in terms of EV, and you, of course, will have the plan to do quite a lot also in the future to contribute to that milestone 2030, 2035. And I would like to ask each of you, starting with Herr Folger, to explain to us what have you done and what will you do for the future as far as ZEV here in Thailand is concerned, starting with Zukunft des Automobil Mercedes-Benz.
Herzlichen Dank. Thank you very much, Kopun Kap, and thank you very much. It's a big honor to have the possibility to discuss our topics here with you. As we have heard in the past few presentations, there is quite a lot of science fiction-like and very hypothetical discussions that we all share at the moment. And I can just applaud the Thai government for their farsightedness and their planning capability to make sure that Thailand remains at the very forefront of this development into electric vehicles. Now, let me jump first in my first presentation and show you, because we brought some very, very good news for Thailand from our perspective here. What you see here is not a show car. It's not one of the vehicles that we only present at shows, at motor shows. No, this is actually a vehicle that we will bring in the course of this year to the Thai market. And it is also the first locally produced full electric vehicle in the Thai market. So the first vehicle that you actually see on the road, not only imported fully, but actually locally produced here in Thailand. This is something that we're very proud of, and it basically also supports the claim of the government that we need to rather start earlier than later. And it shows also our commitment to keep on investing and moving our position in the Thai market forward. Next slide, please. Mercedes-Benz has made an announcement recently, just about a month ago, that our company within this decade will go fully electric, wherever that is naturally feasible and possible. But that means we will, by 2025 already, switch to completely new architecture, meaning our platform concept for passenger cars, for AMG vehicles, but also for our traditional vans. That this concept will get a lot more attention and technical support to become fully electric, meaning all new vehicles from 2025 onwards that are launched on a worldwide basis are going to be fully electric vehicles. This is our commitment. This is also the way we think we can move forward around the world in our endeavor to reduce CO2 footprint, reduce carbon monoxide emissions and other topics, and to basically create a cleaner world for all of us. Now, the important part there is that by 2030, as I mentioned, there will be, in most of the markets, if we wish to choose that, only electric vehicles forward. Why is this so important? Because basically it ties in directly with the very demanding targets that the Thai government has set for Thailand, and we are fully capable and willing to support it to the fullest extent available to us. If you go to the next page, please. This also shows that we're not just talking about hypothetical topics. We had early on made very, very clear that there is a commitment for Mercedes-Benz to basically make a footprint and create a long-lasting and sustainable footprint here in Thailand. What you see here are all the factories around the globe for Mercedes-Benz that produce electric batteries. And you see also here that there's only 2 locations so far in Asia, which is in China, and the other one is here in Thailand. We have started out first with starting to produce the electric batteries for our plug-in hybrids here, where we are leading the market with more than 20,000 units already sold, but where we have also started with the concept to produce our real, and this is a much, much more demanding story, to produce our batteries also for the BEVs locally here for the Thai market, and potentially in the future also for exporting to other markets where we could basically make use of this topic. This naturally would not have been possible without very, very positive support that we have seen from the government, namely BOI, in making this happen, and therefore creating the opportunity for us to really support the demanding Thai target to move as quickly as possible to a fully electric setup that we have here. Next slide, please. This is just to show our history. We have already since 2013 started with hybrid vehicles, went quickly through a phase of plug-in hybrids that we have been and that we continue to produce also for the future, because these vehicles make us more independent from charging stations. And until we have a proper charging station network, plug-in hybrids are still the best solution for customers. And what you can also see at the very end is our introduction very, very soon of our EQS, the first fully BEV model that is localized production in Thailand. I would also want to point out an important topic, which is what we call charge to change. It's basically a concept and a solution where we try to engage into customers, whether they are Mercedes customers or other customers, to use their plug-in hybrid vehicles to charge them on a regular basis, therefore creating an ecosphere and a business system already with the existing charging stations that we can basically use for that purpose as well. And don't forget, all of these plug-in hybrids are all locally made in Thailand for the Thai market. Next page. And I come to the end of my presentation. So what do we need to do? What do we see as a necessity for the part of ZEV adoption in Thailand? Well, first of all, we have this accelerated strategy. We moved our whole timeline forward by more than 5 years and have completely committed our company's resources to go as quickly as possible fully electric. We need, on the other hand, also from the government supporting measures. And it's difficult at the moment to specifically say what these are because we're looking into the first stages of preparing Thailand for electrification. We need especially flexibility, but on the other hand, a clear tax structure for customers to build up trust, feasible and sustainable investments for our local production to make our business cases work, and then naturally also financial support wherever necessary for the EV users, because as long as we have not reached a break-even point for 50-50 ICE engines and BEVs, the tendency of the BEVs to be more expensive is higher. And from a customer perspective, they're looking at how much do I have to spend to get my vehicle basically back. So last but not least, infrastructure for EVs is crucial to make sure that we have enough charging stations, that we have the necessary local testing laboratories, but also that we have a very, very good concept in order to manage basically our second life, as we call it, for our batteries in our electric vehicles. And with that, I'm at the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening in, and I'm looking forward to our further discussions and your questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fogler, for a very clear and very comprehensive answer by your side. And of course, in terms of the prerequisite that Thailand needs to fulfill in the future, I would like to ask you further elaboration in the next round. And I would like to ask Mr. Sekinuti in order to give us the overview of Nissan in terms of EV, as Nissan is one of the world leaders in terms of EV here, not only here in Thailand, but also in the world. Mr. Sekinuti, can you elaborate us what have Nissan done so far and what will you do in order to contribute to further growth of EV here in the Thai as well as in ASEAN markets?
Well, good morning and Sadi Krab. Thank you for the opportunity for Nissan today. I'm Isao Sekiguchi, the Regional Vice President of Nissan in ASEAN region and the President of Nissan Motor in Thailand. It's an honor to speak here in front of you. We are here today to discuss about the future of electrified mobility in Thailand, and let me provide Nissan's perspective. Begin with in ASEAN, Nissan has established presence in 21 markets, covering ASEAN countries, Hong Kong, and markets in Pacific Islands. Thailand is Nissan's manufacturing hub and R&D center for the ASEAN region. We have a long-standing manufacturing heritage in Thailand, producing high-quality vehicles in the kingdom for almost 70 years. As of today, the Nissan Group companies in Thailand employs more than 6,000 people. We have 5 subsidiaries, including 2 production bases, with a production capacity of 250,000 vehicles. Thailand is also a regional base for Nissan R&D Center and ASEAN head office. Our 2 factories in Samut Prakan province play an important part in Nissan's manufacturing footprint, not just in Thailand, but globally. We are exporting to more than 100 countries worldwide, including to Japan. Nissan Thailand is a global center of excellence for pickup trucks. Our R&D center provides testing facilities for 90 markets worldwide, and Nissan's expansion for producing electrified vehicles in Thailand began in 2020. We invested in manufacturing capability to produce e-power technology. Thailand became the first country after Japan to manufacture Nissan's award-winning e-power. This is in line with the Thai government's targeted 50% EV goal out of total annual car production by 2030. Nissan's investment demonstrate our commitment to the country, positively contributing towards the automotive supply chain and the Thai economy. Nissan was the first in the world to introduce a mass market 100% electric vehicle, the Nissan Leaf, in 2010. Globally, 500,000 customers in 59 markets have chosen the zero-emission Leaf. From the pioneering first version to the current one we sold in Thailand since 2018, we estimate that Leaf owners have driven their cars approximately 16 billion kilometers cumulatively worldwide, preventing more than 2.5 billion kilograms of CO2 emissions from entering to the atmosphere. In 2020, we introduced Nissan Kicks e-Power to Thailand. It is powered by 100% electric motor driving system, gives the same high-performance driving experience as an all-electric car without the need for external charging. The e-Power technology serves as an innovative technological bridge for Thai customers towards electric vehicles. Kicks e-Power has won numerous awards and recognitions in Japan and in ASEAN. For Nissan, 100% EV Nissan Leaf and e-Power vehicle represent two interconnected pillars of resource-efficient, emissions-reducing technologies from which customers can choose depending on their needs and lifestyles. With Nissan's experience in developing and manufacturing electric vehicle, we made a multi-billion Thai baht investment enabling production of e-Power technology in Thailand as the first location outside of home, Japan. Japan is showing strong demand for Nissan Thailand vehicles. In FY20, more than 60% of the total vehicle volume exports from Nissan Thailand were to Japan, of which 87% was Nissan Kicks e-Power, indicative of the highest standards of production in our plants. To date, we export Kicks e-Power to Japan, Singapore, and Indonesia. We believe the collaboration is the key to drive electrified mobility. Together with partners, we are helping to build the right ecosystem of infrastructure and innovation to enable more people to enjoy electric drive benefits. We also continue to focus on creating awareness of electric vehicles benefits. This includes technical advantage like instant torque, powerful acceleration, and advanced safety, and how electric vehicles can transform people's way of life in impactful ways like reduced noise pollution and emissions. To wrap up, we aim to collaborate with government, partners, and other key stakeholders to electrify cars in Thailand and ASEAN roads. Event like today is vital to help drive the conversation forward. Together, we have the power to drive the future. Thank you, Kopun Krap, and I look forward for further discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much for your great contribution. Together, we will make the future of driving. And I really like this point about the awareness of the public towards the benefits of the EV cars. And of course, since we see your car manufactured here in Thailand, in the later round, I might ask you, Sekiguchi-san, about the plan to increase the local contents for the EV car, because Thailand has been producing the ICE for decades already. And now I would like to turn my questions to Kun Kanchit Chaisupo, who is the Vice President for Great Wall Motors, of course, one of the largest car manufacturers of the world from China. And Kun Kanchit, could you give us the overview of what have Great Wall Motors been doing? What will you plan to do as far as EV and ZEV is concerned in the Thai or in ASEAN markets, Kun Kanchit?
Thank you very much, Dr. Witt. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for giving Great Wall Motor an opportunity to introduce our company in Thailand. As probably some of you may not know that Great Wall Motor is a Chinese company. It's having quite famous on the SUV and pickup manufacturing in China. And we are listed in Hong Kong and Shanghai stock market with 80 subsidiaries and nearly 70,000 employees worldwide. We have our product export to more than 60 countries. Just to let you know a little bit on Great Wall Motor before we share you some technology. We have our registered capital of 41 billion Thai baht. With total asset in 2020, 715 billion Thai baht, and the net profit last year is 27 billion Thai baht. We have different brands in different segments of the product, namely Hawao, which is the first brand that we introduced in Thai market. This Hawao brand is famous in SUV. And we have V. V is a premium SUV brand. But not yet introduced in Thailand. Next, we have Aura. Aura is our world famous BEV, the electrification brand. for Great Wall, and we will be introduced in Thai market very soon. Next brand is the Power. Power is the pickup truck brand, and the last one we just introduced early this year, Tank. Tank is the represent the SUV and the toughness of the SUV for worldwide market. Next. Before moving to our Thailand plan, I would like to introduce our global R&D center. Great Wall set up R&D center in 10 center in 7 countries, namely China, Japan, Germany, India, the US, South Korea, and Austria. On those R&D center is to making some research and develop the key product like the modeling, the new energy system development, vehicle software and hardware control system, testing facilities, and autonomous driving. Also, not just only the R&D center, Great Wall having a plan in different countries, not just only in China. Of course, China is our head office and our brand owners. So there are 7 production bases in China. But not only China, we have the overseas production base in Russia, which start production in 2019. And for this year, we have Thailand plant that we just start and launching our brand here. And we are going to expand more in worldwide market for Great Wall brand. Next. Here are some of our technology development for the world, and namely plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, battery electric vehicle. We have R&D on battery with our subsidiaries. We also are the first Chinese company member in the Hydrogen Council, where we also having a development of the hydrogen energy fuel cell product. Also on the autonomous, we are at the level 5 autonomous, but still waiting to be the right time to be launching to the market. Next slide. I would like to explain to the Thai market a little bit about our electrification technology. Great Wall, we have our own electrification technology. There are 3 key electric components that we would like to share with the public today about how we manage battery, motor, and electronic control system in the module approach. So the benefit of using the module integration, we have dedicated to small size, lightweight, and high efficiency design, and having low power consumption, long-term battery life, utilize motor frequency control, and ultra thin silicon. Also, this can make the capacity of the EV that we develop under this concept up to 100 kilometers with electricity consumption in less than 12.5 kilowatt hour. That's why making the driving range up to 600 kilometers under this module concept. So we have 3 different outstanding engineering that we want to share on our EV. First, on the integrated EV drive module, this making the size and weight reduction and making the high torque to the power, making the speed of the EV can be accelerated to 100 kilometers at less than 8 seconds. The second module that we make it in our Great Wall engineering is the integrated power supply module. This integrated onboard charge, power distribution unit, and DC to DC improve conversion efficiency and making the two-way charge and discharge technology into the EV system. Also, lastly, about the aluminum housing battery pack, this making the specific energy more on the vehicle. Okay, next slide. So on this thing, on the electrification technology, we also introduce our global platform technology to our XEV product. Our two unique design of the platform, starting from the Lemon Global High Intelligent Modular Platform. The Lemon platform that we introduced into the engineering world has 5 distinctive features with a lightweight, electrification, multi-purpose, omni-protection, and network on this platform, enable multi-powertrain development, not just only electrification, where if the world is going to electrification, but if the world is not yet going that, we can use this platform in ICE, in hybrid, and also fuel cell in the future. The second platform we call ME platform. This is the first exclusive platform for electric vehicle in China with 6 keys called advanced, the last space, high safety, full intelligence, long mileage, low energy consumption, and connectivity capacity. So all these things are engineering capacity of our global platform of Great Wall product. Next. The other one that I would like to mention is about our global BEV technology that we want to bring into Thailand and ASEAN. This year, we would like to launch our first BEV model, and from 2023, we plan to start producing the long-range battery EV model in Thailand for domestic and export. And combine Great Wall Motor advanced vehicle platform with leading power management system. Great Wall Motor will provide various BEV products lineup while addressing customer key concern of battery EV, which is we need to make the car safer, worry-free driving range, fun to drive, and affordable vehicle in ASEAN market. Next slide, I show you some of our product lineup that we plan to introduce in Thailand and ASEAN. So all these products we will start gradually introduce into the market, and within this year, the public can see the first product on this lineup. Next slide. Something I want to pass it to the policymaker and some expectation on manufacturer like Great Wall that we want to see the move on the ZEV or the BEV development here in Thailand. Of course, we need a commitment and policy integration. Many cases we see only the top government saying about the commitment, but the policy integration is something necessary in Thailand between Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Finance, BOI, Ministry of Industry, Land Transport, etc. On this thing need to work in the same master plan, the same commitment from the top to the working level. Next, we want to see the supply, which it means that the government needs to be fully support the manufacturer to ensure that the maker who produce BEV locally will make the product competitive in the market. I will not go into all the details, but okay, if we can discuss later, we can talk more on the detail. Demand pull is something that we can push the consumer, the buyer, to be able to buy it easily to get something competitive in the market with ICE product on this BEV. We need infrastructure. Of course, everyone speaking on this since the beginning about the public chargers and ability for the consumer to access to the public charging infrastructure. Of course, if we need to produce the BEV in Thailand, we need human skill development as well as the supply chain on the local supply base to ensure that everyone will keep pace on the development of this electrification to ensure that we have human skill as well as the supplier development. And finally, about the consumer knowledge and awareness, we need something robust in the market about the EV usage and can benefit to the consumer, then they will have no reluctance to start the purchase of the PV. Okay, I want to leave only this slide. And if we have a further discussion, I'm pleased to expand more on this expectation to the policymaker. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for a comprehensive answer from Kun Kanchit from Great Wall Motors, who is a newcomer in Thai automotive markets here in Thailand. And I would like to ask the questions to three of the gentlemen here. Normally, what attracted the car manufacturers to invest here and produce their cars here in Thailand are the strength of the local parts supplier. And since the world has changed the platform from the internal combustion engines into EV, I mean BEV, plug-in EV, or ZEV, how do you evaluate the ability of the Thai local suppliers, whether or not they are able, in order to supply the car manufacturers with required parts and components for your further progress as far as EV and ZEV is concerned? Can I start with Herr Volker, bitte?
Yes, first of all, we need to realize that a lot of the things that we have knowledge from on the ICE front are changing. So we need to wrap our arms around the fact that with electric vehicles, and especially fully electric vehicles, we have a completely different set of challenges. First of all, at the moment, there is a much, much higher, I would say, influence on cost pressure, meaning cost efficiency in producing BEVs is going to be much, much higher than on traditional ICE engines. In addition to that, we are looking into completely different ecosystems around the electric vehicles because everybody realizes who enters the field of electric vehicles that we need an ecosystem that financially supports the sales of our vehicles as well, meaning we need to come up with additional business ideas that generate additional turnover for our dealer network and for us as a manufacturer. So when we're thinking about new ideas, we're not talking about the traditional setup of suppliers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or something like that, but we're predominantly looking into also developing completely new setups, whether these are apps that help our customers to not only book and pay for at stations to charge their vehicles, but to pre-book. So when they travel someplace, they know that when they arrive at the location, there is already a reserved charging station waiting for them. These things we need to look into really, and we need to come up with more service-oriented business proposals than we might have had in the past. But that does not mean that there is not still a continuing long life for also manufacturers of traditional parts that we are looking for. Our cars will still have door panels. Our cars will still have front views and topics like that. They will still have steering wheels and they will still have seats and everything and tires. But I would say the shift towards a new technology is going to be the biggest demand, and this is where we are starting. I've started already discussing this these topics in detail with our local suppliers already.
Wonderful. That means you have already started talking to your local suppliers. Thank you very much for that. Wonderful.
Yeah, just one more point, because I mentioned before already that we will be starting the production of our local EQS within months. So rest assured, we have already our suppliers also lined up for that purpose. Thank you.
Wonderful. Appreciate that, sir. Appreciate that. Sekiguchi-san, the same questions in terms of how would you assess the readiness or the strength of the local supplier from the change of ICE platform into the EV, BEV and whatever. How would you evaluate that? And what is your plan to discuss with your local suppliers to ensure that we have the CKD's production of EV, BEV and ZEV, sir?
Yeah, before we jump over to EV readiness, I think it would be benefit to touch on the attractiveness of Thailand as not only the hub for the export for the ASEAN region, but actually for the global. And how I think it's the credit goes to Thai government, especially with the BOI, on making this part of the world and Thai automotive industry as a hub, similar to the one in Detroit. It's really the center of the pivot point of making and manufacturing cars in ASEAN, and Thailand is truly a center of it. Now, we have been taking, as I explained a little bit, touch in my presentation, a step-by-step approach to the electrification. We have started producing what we call the e-power technology and making that battery here in Thailand and installed into the car, and we actually export those cars to Japan and other part of ASEAN. So now we have been taking a gradual step in making that shift, going from the conventional ICE car to so-called the hybrid car, then going into the electric vehicle is probably the right step to go. Again, as I mentioned earlier, at the end of the day, it's the customers who will decide the car. And I echo Mr. Foger's challenge on the cost competitiveness of making electric vehicle work for customers who like to choose over ICE. And as everybody knows in Thailand, still the 50% of the market is a pickup segment. 25% of the market is the so-called the eco car segment. How, although we fully respect understanding the global challenges, moving into the world of electrification is the right path. And I echo everybody's comments about that we are moving into the right direction. However, I believe the work that we need to do collectively among OEM, suppliers, government, and various partners is how can we make sure that we have a right infrastructure with the right timing and making sure that we have the step-by-step shift so that the customers have a choice to choose from. And also we're making, as the industry, making the gradual step towards what we call the electrification. So from Nissan's perspectives, we have been shifting from a pure ICE engine to so-called the next form of the electrification with the localization. I think we are going into the right step in terms of really getting ready towards the electrification future and continue to be the hub for the export. And I think we cannot underestimate the position of what Thailand plays globally, that yes, there is a market of 1 million cars a year, but we should not also forget that more than half of the cars that are being produced here in Thailand are destined to the other markets, which could be ready for the electrification with a similar timeline as Thailand, but which could not be ready in terms of the electrification, and they might have a different timeline. So how can we accommodate to the needs and wants of those customers that are in Thailand, but also other part of ASEAN and other part of the world, which are buying cars from Thailand?
Great answer, sir. Thank you very much. I mean, I do like the word what you say. We need right infrastructure for the further growth of EV and so on. And sometimes when people look at Thai car production, we always think about domestic market without thinking about the exporting market, whether or not they are moving in the same pace as we have been doing or we will do. Thank you very much for that. And now the same question to Kun Kanchit. I think some of the EV cars, sometimes we import it as CBUs, but I don't know, how do you estimate the ability of local suppliers for Thailand to build the CKD's EV from the perspective of Great Wall Motors? Kun Kanchit, please.
Thank you, Dr. Witt. I think this question is quite tough for the local supplier who is trying to get involved in the new technology. But of course, there are different kinds of the supplier who has capacity and technology, like the joint venture or the big key supplier in Thailand. They are ready. But okay, the second tier or third tier supplier, probably they need to speed up and trying to gain more technology transfer, or if possible, they need to purchase this technology. But of course, this is the issue in how to transform from ICE production base into electrification or new technology, new energy production base in Thailand. Something I would like to recommend supplier. Of course, Great Wall, we try to look for the local supplier to support this program, but it's sometimes very difficult. Number one, because we are very new in Thailand, and we also need the strong collaboration and partners with the supplier to develop under our technology. This is something that need to develop in a long-term perspective. But quickly to say, I would say that Thai supplier is very strong, but they are lacking opportunity on the new technology to adopt to their production capacity. So they have already the quality, the price. For the ICE product, Thai supplier very strong in terms of quality, price, delivery, and financial service. But of course, they need something new is the technology, the new technology for the EV parts or some electronic advanced technology parts. This is something they may need to look at the opportunity to develop joint venture with the overseas expertise that they have this technology, or even they need to purchase this technology and develop by themselves to be capable of supplying to the OEM. So I think this is a very important suggestion for the local supplier to be in the community of the electrification in the future. So I would say that Thai supplier having a very strong background and capacity in terms of the current technology of the ICE, but they themselves need to search for technology and expertise from overseas or from different partners to develop themselves capacity to be the supplier to the OEM in the near future. Okay, this is something I want to pass it.
Thank you very much. And I would like to ask the questions, I think, to all of you, but start with Sekiguchi-san. When you mentioned about the right infrastructure, from the point of view of those who still use the ICE, we think that the expansion or the enlargement of the electrified facility, infrastructure, charging station seems to be pretty slow. As long as you are in the automotive industry, very active in EV, how do you see that? And what kind of right infrastructures are top priorities to make EV markets growth here in Thailand?
Yeah, thank you for a great question. I think a lot of speakers, audience mentioned, and I will echo, but most importantly for giving our experience, start selling EV back in 2010. One of the breakthroughs is definitely availability of charging stations. One example, in Japan, we started selling our Leaf back in 2010. Right now, the number of EV stations or charging stations are more than the number of typical gas stations. That is about more than 30,000 locations across the network in Japan. Despite the fact that the numbers are increasing, yet still the number of EV sales is in a single digit. And especially when we look at the major cities, still the numbers of infrastructure and access to the charging, like city in Tokyo, is very limited. So therefore, how can we make charging access more easier and more available to the people that are driving car on a day-to-day lives? And rather than booking some location to charge, because that's a hustle in our normal hectic life. So I would say that the number and availability and access to the charging is far most important in making a breakthrough in EV. Of course, on top of incentives, whether the car is affordable to buy, these factors come into play. But looking globally and also our experiences and looking at the breakthrough point on the EV, definitely the access to the charging and availability of a charging, especially in a country like Thailand, where most of the traffic is packed in Bangkok. How can we make that charging available for those drivers making a daily commute? I think that will be one of the collective challenge not just with the government, but again, I would say it's a collective effort with all the key stakeholders to make that happen.
Collective challenge. I like that word. Well, Herr Volker, do you have anything to contribute to that big question in concerning?
Yes, of course, I would love to. The topic from our perspective is we have looked at in great lengths and have experience now in more than, I would say, 20 cities around the world where we're working very closely together with the respective governments to come up with mobility systems within the city that try to attract customers to go for alternative drive vehicles that are basically producing less emissions. Now, based on that experience, the biggest challenge is the first one. It's like a gate opener. You have to have the charging stations because otherwise customers simply will not take the risk of buying vehicles where they have to be continuously concerned on how to charge them. Now, in a city like Bangkok, we have to find solutions, and we're in discussion with the government on these topics as well. We have to find solutions for all these apartment buildings specifically, because where do you charge your vehicle? It's not practical to do it during shopping because you only spend 1 hour in a shopping center. If you spend more time, 3-4 hours, it becomes more attractive. But normally the easiest way to charge your vehicles is if you're home overnight, you sleep, you charge your vehicle. But that would require that we electrify all these apartment complexes throughout the city to get to these significant amount of customers, for instance. But this is just a gate opener that we need to establish. And let me qualify briefly when I meant before, we need to have a technology that secures the charging and the booking of charging stations. I was thinking about the long distance driving, because can you imagine what a customer would feel like? He has 10% left on his battery charge. He comes to a charging station. All the 4 spots there are blocked. And if they're blocked, that means normally they're blocked for minimum 1 or 2 hours. And if there's a few cars lined up already, he would have to stop for 3 or 4 hours. That's non-negotiable. That's not the solution customers are looking for. So what do we need? Entry segment first, or the first step that we need to cover is charging stations. And as my predecessor here, or my former speaker here from Nissan already mentioned, we need to have then on top of that naturally incentive that once you cross the threshold of this range anxiety and charging possibilities, you then need to make the electric vehicles more attractive than your ICE vehicles. Because otherwise, why as a customer would you otherwise change?
Thank you. Thank you. Concerning that, I would like to come back to both of you later on about how to create the awareness of that. But of course, there is one question that I need to ask 3 of you concerning the government policy and clarity in terms of regulations and policy. Maybe I would start that questions concerning government policy as well as demand from private sector in order to use the incentive and regulations to progress the demand for EV. Kun Kanchit, that's your favorite topic. Can you share with us? What would you think that car manufacturers would demand from the government?
Thank you very much, Dr. Witt. I think this is something necessary from every government where they need to promote the BEV or the EV, ZEV to be successful, because not our private sector always need, but because the product itself is expensive. I mean, the cost is not as competitive as the ICE, because this is since the early stage of the development of electrification, the battery cost, blah, blah, blah. This making the product itself is not competitive in the market. So how can the government, where they have caring to the environment, they want to move pace with the global forces on this environment issue and trend, on the new technology. So on this thing is the homework to every government, including the Thai government, to look for a robust policy to drive this. Okay, of course, the government having the roadmap on the ZEV target. This morning we hear about 30 at 30, or even 50 at 35 or something like that. But okay, that's the gimmick of the story. But how can the government can manage something more touchable or more tangible in this policy into the operation. One thing that I think OEM need is to open the market, to have the market trial. Sometimes we need to look at the subsidies or the incentive program for the user or buyer to ensure that the decision maker who want to buy the new car is looking at BEV as one of their options, So the special subsidy on the CBU in the beginning of this stage is necessary. At the same time, in the local production, need also a robust subsidy to ensure that the production of the BEV in Thailand is competitive to the CBU import. This is not easy because under the concept of the government, the rule and regulation, the tax, I give you the example, the free zone is something that can make competitive because this can be a mechanism to drive the import duty of the car to be 0%, similar to the CBU import. But the rule and regulation or the process that they need sometimes is more difficult than to produce ICE car in the free zone and to produce versus the production of the BEV. So this is something I want to pass it to the policymaker to look at something, a mechanism to drive the locally production BEV as competitive as the CBU, and at the same time to have opportunity for the CBU to get subsidy and in the introduction of the market in this 1 or 2 year stage to ensure that the consumer who start thinking of buying the next car will be thinking of BEV as their option. Okay, I want to start on this initiative idea first. Dr. Viet, thank you.
Thank you very much, Khun Kanchit. The same questions for the two gentlemen. Herr Folger, you mentioned earlier on about the unclear regulation somehow. And what would you think the ideal regulatory framework if we want to promote the EV here in the country? What should be clear and what should be identified to ensure that all car manufacturers can go ahead with it?
Well, that would be a longer discussion, I think, of 2 days. But let me try to come to the major points that we see from our side. Mm-hmm. The biggest topic, I think, what we need to have is this chicken and egg situation where we need to understand, the guys, the companies that invest into the charging technology and the people that are supposed to basically invest into BEVs. We need to dovetail our planning properly. Yeah, we have seen today from Ivat, from Kuntrista, a few overviews what they're planning for. But I give you also my experience from Europe. We normally say that for each 100,000 vehicles that you want to bring to the street, fully electric vehicles, you need roughly 10%, which means 10,000 charging stations. If we apply that to Thailand, then the 225,000 BEVs that we want to have on the road in 2025, that this would require close to 22,000 charging stations. Yeah, we don't see that yet. So we need to make sure that our planning and investments need to go hand in hand. I think the government is taking already great steps in making this more transparent and also creating the proper environment for that. The other thing, what we should never forget is we in Thailand, we are in competition. We are in competition not only with other countries in Southeast Asia, but for electric vehicles, especially in competition, even inside our own companies with product that might come from China. Yeah, and we need to have clarity. I'm now not fighting for my overall company, Mercedes. I'm fighting for Thailand and our investments into the Thai market because I believe we have a right and we have a necessity to be here. This requires, however, that our offering from Thailand of vehicles that we produce locally with additional investments, with additional manpower, additional technology transfer, that these things make sense on a corporate level. So I can go back to the colleagues in Germany and say, Thailand is the best location for vehicles that we need in the Southeast Asian region.
Thank you very much, Chef Olga, for a very clear answer yet again for that. Well, Sekiguchi-san, same things concerning the demand from car manufacturers in terms of government framework to enable all of us in order to move forward substantially. What do you think from your standpoint?
Yeah, I think the two gentlemen before me have put this and summarized the key elements. I just want to echo Mr. Folger's internal competition. For Nissan, we have Japan, China, these are neighbors to Thailand. Mm-hmm. So definitely how we can uplift the competitiveness and the advantage of Thailand internally is something I'm fighting for. And I really echo, I am fighting for Thailand internally. And I think that's a lot of executives do in our region, and how to bring the further investment to Thailand. But one thing that I'd like to highlight as we go forward is importance of making the awareness and a proof points. And I believe, we're talking about the policy, the guys, and, electrifying Thailand in the next decade. But still the mindset of our consumers are still not there. And they still simply wonder, what is the difference between the pure electric vehicle drive to the conventional gasoline drive? What are the benefits? What are the advantages? And I said earlier in my presentation, I think it's one of our job, and also working with the government and the key stakeholders, is to really increase the awareness of the electric vehicle with the proof points. And I think one of the examples that have contributed in bringing that awareness in some other countries, an example includes the government cars are replaced with the electric vehicle. I think that's a great proof point that the government is really not just talking about the guidelines, but seriously transforming how the automotive industry should be and want to be in this country, and moving that shift. Many governments have started to do that. And I know that Thai government have already announced that they are going to replace the future cars with the electric vehicle, I think, which is a good initiative to make that proof points. So how can we collectively work to build awareness on and around the electric vehicle? That would only help to get the buy-ins of not just the OEMs who are considering to make investments or not into Thailand on full BEV in the future, but also other key partners and the stakeholders that are really needed to make this EV happen in terms of the breakthrough. So those are key points and perspectives that I have on EV going forward, on top of the policy and the guidelines that are required by the government.
Thank you very much. Well, now, I wish we have hours longer. Unfortunately, we only have approximately 10 minutes left for this before we open the floor for questions from audiences. This question actually was raised by Sekiguchi-san. That's about how to raise the awareness of the consumers, of the customers, to be convinced that EV is at least comparable to the ICE. Yeah? It seems that in some of the market, the response was very fast, for example, in Europe or in China, but in some of the countries, doesn't seem so. Let's say, for example, the UK, for example. From your perspective, what should be the right solution for the Thai markets? I would start with Kun Kanchit first.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Witt, on raising awareness. I think this is a very important to get ZEV or BEV popular in Thailand. I agree with Sekiguchi-san and Mr. Folger, who has experience in Europe, that Thailand, we need to benchmark and looking other country who has developed successfully, especially in European country on this exposure, to the public. There are many ways that the government, of course, we need the government fleet, as Sekiguchi-san, that should be the first group of user of BEV. But apart from that, I think one of the important one is we want to have the user friendly in terms of using BEV. So far, when we start using BEV, sometimes it's not so friendly, where to charge, how to charge, this is where when we need to go up country, is it enough? Where I think charger and charging anxiety is something that create some worry and not very friendly to the user, or even the sign board. If the big city like Bangkok or some city like Phuket or Chiang Mai, the city that to create now we want the government talking about the sandbox, all right? We can do the sandbox for EV exposure to develop some kind of the awareness or user friendly into the road. We have the signboard, we have the parking, we have a free toll for BEV. This is something we can create as a sandbox for BEV user to make it friendly and to get awareness. And I think on this opportunity, we can create a lot of customer, even they can pay more, a little bit, 10, 20% higher cost than the ICE price. But I think the new generation, the public, they are willing if it is user friendly in using BEV in Thailand. That's my thought, Dr. Win.
Thank you, Khun Kanchit. Well, the same questions to Herr Volker. It seems that European markets respond quite positively and very quickly in terms of EV, if I understand correctly, at least in comparison to, I think, US and UK, for example. I mean, since you have been here in Thailand for a long while already, how would you think about the right solution to create awareness for Thai people and the Thai markets?
Unfortunately, and I have to disappoint you there, maybe it's not going to be as easy as just create awareness. What we have learned from around the world is that even a very highly developed sense of protecting the environment and reducing CO2 and stabilizing climate change, all of these things, when it comes to your personal choice of mobility, still does not play the major role. And this is unfortunate, but we cannot change that. Let's be realistic about this topic. So what we need to do and what we have seen in European countries is, unfortunately, and I know the governments don't like to hear that, but it is usually tax money. It's usually, not having to pay registration fee. If you go to Norway, and Kun Krista showed a very good example from Ivat before on how successful Norway has been. Norway has very, very high import duties for all kinds of vehicles, no difference. And they started off basically saying, if you want to import an electric vehicle, there's no import tax or close to zero. Yeah, so it's the financial benefits where customers say, oh my God, this is so much better. This is so much more attractive than my present ICE car. I'll switch. Yeah, so let's not play this topic of not so much, I would at least say, not so much that topic of environmental consciousness, because that's not going to sway the majority of buyers. It's the convenience, it's getting your car charged wherever you want it to. But the really big point is, especially in the beginning, to get to a critical mass of people buying it, trying it out, finding it works, that we have to, in the beginning, in the first 1, 2, 3, 4 years, overcompensate the price disadvantage. And this is something where even if we bring electric vehicles to the same level as our ICEs, that will not be enough, in my personal opinion, because customers still see more the risks of electric vehicles with what happens after 4 or 5 years with the battery and things like that. And these are significant and these are correct topics, so we should not ignore them. But what we need to do together with the government is to find a way, how can we compensate and create an advantage, a financial advantage for electric vehicles over traditional ICEs.
Thank you very much for having clarified us, because I attended several forums for the EV and so on. When we mention about European markets, we think about the Umweltschutz or Umweltfreundlichkeit kind of incentive. That's environmental friendliness, awareness of that. And now let's turn to the person who sparks off the discussions about the awareness. Sekiguchi-san, how would you think should be the right solution in order to convince the Thai customers to think that, hey, EV and ZEV is very beneficial, not only to themselves, but also to the society, and progress further?
I want to mention a couple points. I'm like many of you here, I'm a pure car guy who really like to drive with an excitement. And one thing that I can tell you, and this also helps in increasing awareness of what the EV driving feel looks like. And if you put yourself behind the wheel on EV, the acceleration and the torque, the moment you step on the pedal gas, it gives you a complete blown out feeling. And it's really different from the pure conventional ICE engine car. And the fun to driveness, I think, a lot of people don't really talk about it, but in Nissan, we really put a lot of efforts and emphasize on to keep providing the excitement to drive, even if become 100% EV is something that we continue to work on. And that acceleration is really similar to the one you step in, try the GTR, one of our, sports cars. It's quite similar to that acceleration feeling. So one thing that I want many of people, especially the young and old generation, again, maybe it's my generation who simply love to drive a car, but this EV is really giving that fun to drive, and especially with the acceleration. So that's one thing that I really want people to feel and understand. It is not just the eco-friendly car, but also it is fun to drive. Now, another aspect that I want to highlight, and I maybe it's to a certain extent echoing Mr. Fogel, but there has to be a visible advantage, especially in the early stage. So I think he mentioned about having the financial advantage, but also I would put visible physical advantage that one can have. For an example, a special lane. Bangkok today is less of a traffic jam, no hustle, no hectic. But once the situation gets better with the COVID, I'm sure we will have a traffic jam. Now, is there any priority lane or priority space where the EV can go? That is a visible advantage that the one can get by having and owning an EV. And we have seen that cases in other parts of the world, like in the US, when they wanted to go with a hybrid car, they made a special lane on the highway in California. That is one advantage that we could foresee in providing for EV. Another one is a priority parking with a charging station at any of the shopping malls. I know the people in Thailand love to go to the shopping malls. I also love to go to the shopping malls. The way the people spend on weekend is on the shopping malls. Why not give that physical advantage of having a priority parking closest to the entrance so that you have that sort of a privileged feeling by owning an EV? And I think these are quite important together with the financial advantage in creating awareness of the EV, putting EV more on the roads of EV. And I think that's where we are today. And I think we need to take that efforts to do so.
Thank you very much. Well, I wish we had longer time, but unfortunately, if we look at our clock, it's almost lunchtime. And I think that I integrate many questions from the audiences into my questions, which has been discussed already. And I think it should be time for the three gentlemen to give some final remarks. Key point should be, how should be the key in order to make Thailand to remain competitive in attracting foreign investors as far as EV is concerned? Shall I start with Herr Volker again?
Thank you very much. Very briefly, I think we have learned a lot in the past few years on how we promoted PHEVs, plug-in hybrids. This has actually lifted Thailand to the third largest country for Mercedes as far as plug-in hybrid percentage of vehicles is concerned. Some of our best-selling models like the E-Class have up to 40% plug-in hybrids that they use today. Yeah, and their savings on the emissions reduction is substantial. I think what we need to have is more dialogue than we have today. Yeah, we need to exchange better, more intensive on a regular basis, because we all don't know how all of this is going to pan out. We don't know how customers will react in the future. So the more intensively we can work together in managing this really exciting adventure to bring electric vehicles to Thailand and to export from here as well, I think this is what everybody here is looking very much forward to. But let's talk more, let's find common solutions, and let's learn something also from the past for the things that have worked out right from our perspective. Thank you very much again for the opportunity to speak here. Very much honored. It was very interesting to be here. Thank you again.
Vielen Dank für Ihre klare Antwort. Thank you very much. Sekiguchi-san, it's your turn. Any final remarks to urge Thailand's ability for EVs?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think an event and an occasion like this to exchange, the challenges and opportunity that we face today and tomorrow in electrifying Thailand is really a key. Again, building the awareness from the ground, not really on the high level discussion. Of course, that is, important to talk about the policy and the guidelines and the future investment, but there are still many things that we can do on ground. And I believe raising that awareness, having the communication among the key stakeholders is the only way we can really make this EV here to stay in Thailand. So again, thank you very much for this great opportunity today. I enjoyed the discussion very much. Great Q&As. And great comments, and I learned it. But again, let's continue to have this kind of a dialogue going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having excited us as well as inspired us in many ways, Sekiguchi-san. And finally, Kun Kanchit, any final remarks for the people here in the crowd here?
Yeah, of course, and thank you very much. I would say that Great Warm Water having determination for long-term development on the electrification and to support the ZEV target in Thailand and to be using our production here as a base for the export as well. Why? Because we have ready smart factory and production base. We have EV expertise and technology. We investment here and we would like to expand into R&D center on this next generation or new energy vehicle. We want to introduce the advanced platform to use our production here in the ICE today, but the future will be the electric vehicle for the opportunity. And also we would like to develop the local skill and supply chain on the supply base here in Thailand. Why? But because if the government need to be ready as well, as I mentioned, demand and supply need to be pushing. We need the supply pushing the vehicle production here in Thailand. We don't want to be only the importer of the CPU and cell, but we want to develop the EV production here in Thailand. But the government need to work closely with us to make it competitive, locally production BEV in Thailand. At the same time, the government need to drive the demand side. This is important. To make the consumer benefit in purchase the BEV versus the ICE because everyone having a worry on the high price, on the driving range, on any public infrastructure. There are so many things that, as I mentioned, we need EV user friendly in using BEV, especially on the public infrastructure and how to access to the different providers. Okay, that's something I want to pass it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't know how to thank the three panelists who have inspired us as well as excited us along the way. This is a 60-minute not only full of information, but full of wisdom, excitement, and inspiration. And I really hope that when the pandemic COVID-19 is over, all of us can do a conference or the seminar in the circuit where we can excite Mercedes-Benz EQs, Nissan GT-R, GWM, as well as some other brands together because excitement matters. Once more, thank you very much, the three gentlemen. Thank you very much, Mr. Folker. Thank you very much, Sekiguchi-san. Thank you very much, Kun Kanchit. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณมากครับ
Thank you very much. ขอบคุณมากครับ
Thank you very much.
ขอบคุณครับ ขอบคุณครับ
Well, I wish we were in the circuit and experiencing excitement of these EVs. EVs are not boring. We need to sit at the driving seat and experience that by ourselves. Well, that's all for today's seminar. Unfortunately, the time is over. However, I need to remind all of you again that even though the seminar is ended already, however, we have some other discussions in over 40 topics over 4 days of the work. of this event, Subcon Thailand Virtual Edition. And I really wish to urge all of you to spend time traveling in that Subcon Thailand Virtual Edition, which is, of course, the exhibition in terms of technology, Intermac Digital Showroom. And I have to thank everyone for joining us this morning for approximately 3 hours. And I really hope that the COVID-19 will be over and then we meet each other again in a more sexy setup, in a more exciting environment. Thank you very much and goodbye. Thank you. Herzlich vielen Dank. Arigatou gozaimashita. Thank you.